big school with a big name. Have you read the Old Testament? Well, it's like Jeremiah. Jeremiah has a huge hammer. It's like Thor, you know, the god of thunderbolt. With that hammer, you bang on anything, it just opens. So when you get a degree from, say, Stanford, like degree in, I don't know, cartoons, whatever, once they see that you have Stanford or Yale, it doesn't matter how incompetent, how stupid, as long as it's there. How do you think I got this job? I just put on my resume Yale and that was it. No one checked. I never went to school. I just lied. See? You're not a Jew, are you? Good. Lying must come easy for you. Adrian, what's going on? How old are you? You live at home? Good job. Siblings? Yeah. You guys close? So, well, yeah. By the time life settles, it takes a while. I mean, are they married? That's the reason. Once they get married and have like a dozen kids each, then you guys will get close. Yeah. Emily, you have siblings? How many? Younger, older? Married? Children? Are they going to get married? How old are they? Old. Old. Okay. Yeah, what, 2 brothers and 4 sisters? Okay. And what do they do? Where? Oh, okay. Okay. Your twin? You have a twin? Hello, good morning. What kind of a twin is this? I mean, does she look like you?
I don't think so.
You're older by like a second? By 5 minutes. Wow. Your poor mom. What does she do in the Air Force? Okay. Okay. You okay? Did you know that she has a twin? In the Air Force? 3 kids. How's your pregnant daughter, Tammy?
She's good.
She's still pregnant?
She's still pregnant until February.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Are you excited?
I am.
This going to be your first grandchild?
First grandchild.
Yeah. Yeah. Ah. Joe, you going to get married? I mean, do you like marriage? Cool. A walk in the park is cool. Marriage is something different. Oh man, marriage is cool, huh? Okay. Well, there you have it. I'll tell my wife today. They've had a cool marriage. Yeah. Lark, about you? Wait, you're way too young. You can't think about these things. Do you? Good job. How about children?
I don't want children.
What?
No, I don't.
Yeah, they are awful. I mean, just look at what you've done to your parents.
I know, that's actually one of the reasons.
Yeah.
Come back to your parents.
Yeah. But, you know, you get a little older, you assume that you found the right guy, and then you begin to fantasize, you know, I want to have kids with this guy, and my kid is going to look just like me, not him, because he's ugly. Yeah. Well, good luck. Aman, how about you? Well, you shouldn't really be thinking about those things till you're about like 45. Men usually like cook a bit later. They're raw for the first like 40 years, 50 years, these days, 60 years. But yeah, you like marriage? So? What's wrong with it? Yeah, I can be tough. You know, it's like you open the fridge and you have some like food items, and one of the shelves has been there for like 5 years. It's way in the back. And then you remove the top and it smells bad. I think marriage is one of those institutions, you know, that it was something to believe in and something to do that was, you know, meaningful for many, many thousands of years. Now, I mean, I don't know, it is maybe for some people, but I mean, when you have a divorce rate of 70%, I mean, that's like a business going down under really, really fast. Yeah. Anyways. Right, Emily? Good job. Danielle, what's going on?
Like us. Like some nice games.
Place what?
2 legs.
Play what games? You play what?
Nice games.
Games? What kind of games?
I'm buying several $100 computer for it.
Oh, video games.
Yeah. Still playing a bunch of demos last night.
How many hours a day do you play?
Lost a lot. That was the 4th one that day.
So 3 hours each game
Not each.
altogether?
6.
6 hours? So,
He said maybe more.
so are you an addict?
No, this is the only time I've done this.
Oh,
Last like, well, on class basically, because it was a demo fast on Steam platform where I get these.
Tammy, are you understanding any of this?
No, I don't even know anything about games.
Hobby.
Yeah.
But it can be addictive.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Okay, well, there you have it. Alex, what's going on? Are you married? You want to be married? Joey, why are you laughing? What? He doesn't look married? I mean, looks can be very deceiving. You know, he's got 2 kids. Ask him. What? What do you say? Well, that's private. You should respect people's private space, you know? You know, ask them like casual questions. So, are you going to get married? See, that's like a casual question. What kind of are you into men, women, animals? What are you looking for? What the hell does that mean? I mean, are you looking for like specific qualities in another human being or just anything that comes your way? Like good and bad. I mean, are you like Jesus Christ, good and bad? You don't see the difference. Everything has like the spark of divinity in it. A good personality. Can you give me an example? Imagine I'm your wife. You can't imagine that? Why is everybody laughing? So imagine I'm your wife, or imagine that like I'm this young, very, 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 very attractive young woman, and you meet me at a coffee shop and you happen to be interested. How would you approach me? Like what? Yo, I'm Alex. How? Can I buy you a cup of coffee? I have a nice car. You want to see the back seat? Do you have parents? Do you go to school? Do you play video games? Do you know Danielle? Do you have children? No? Well, good luck to you guys all. Looks like you've done a lot of thinking about this issue. So, anything you want to talk about, Danielle?
Two ideas, not the last one.
What about tattoos?
I said I had two ideas.
Oh,
I guess the first one is like, I don't say that. So, what is the point of virtue when it seems like everything's the moral fiber of society is falling apart? What's the point of virtue then?
you know, if I was to create a scenario, an untrue scenario, let's just say Tammy drinks, let's say Tammy smokes, let's say Tammy has all these ridiculous people coming to her house and they party, and comes February, and all of a sudden she goes to the hospital and she holds her grandchild. And something happens to her, and I don't know what happens to us. You run into, let's say, someone who has this quality of innocence to them. It's kind of like if you go back in time, the Epic of Gilgamesh, some 5,000 years ago, there is the character of Gilgamesh who is contaminated by just society. That's what city life does. You take classes you don't like, you write essays you don't like, you have a job you don't like, you have to talk to people whom you don't like. There are lots of things about city life you don't like. It pushes you into loneliness, depression, anger. And at the end of the day, you go home after 8 hours of working at Home Depot, and you're just full of poison. But you're just far too exhausted to do much about it. So you just kind of crash, or you play video games for 5-6 hours. And then Gilgamesh runs into this chap. His name is Enkidu, whose name in the Sumerian language basically means the most innocent. So Tammy, despite living in the city and being filled with poison in the past like 20, 30, 40, 50 years, all of a sudden, and this happens to be her first grandchild, she holds this thing. And mysteriously, you know, this child takes her back to her own childhood, how things used to be, how easily she was able to laugh or smile. And, you know, you put your face to this kid's face and you just want some of that innocence to just pour into your soul, if you have any left. And then she goes to her daughter and says, when are you getting released? You know, when can you come home? She says, well, in just a couple of hours. She says, give up your partner and come stay with me. That's what she does, you know. For the longest time, she doesn't want her daughter near her, but all of a sudden, now, you know, it's not so much the daughter, but the innocence. It's this new thing. And then her friends begin to call, and she doesn't answer. They want to come over, smoke or drink or have a good time. She says no, you know. And all of a sudden, the definition of virtue or pleasure or purpose or goal or identity, you know, everything changes simply because of her connection to something mysterious. You know, Simone de Beauvoir was a French philosopher. She was the companion of Jean-Paul Sartre. She tried to be monogamous, she couldn't. She had intimate relationship with a whole host of people, including some of her students. Because you and I live in time, and because time creates all these events, you have no choice but to become a victim of those events, for good or the bad. And those events create different selves about you. This is a Danielle who plays video game, and this is Danielle who's very studious. This is Danielle who goes to the church. This is Danielle who's a playboy. This is Danielle who becomes monogamous in a very serious, committed relationship. This is Danielle who's a father. And at every stage of your own growth, you realize that you enter one self, then you exit it, and you enter into another one. And then there's a time of adjustments, and so when you talk about virtue, there is a point in your life where you just like chaos. When you think society gives you plenty of that and you like it. There is a time where you enter, where you're a bit more serious, a bit more reflective, a bit more reclusive, I suppose, because of age and experience. And you realize that society can't really give you the things you're looking for. So you limit your encounter with people to maybe 4 or 5. Those are the only friends you got, and then maybe they'll be just shrunk into just one that happens to be your companion, maybe 2 companion and a child. Or you just won't get married, and you'll realize your best friends are just books. And the only conversation worth having is, obviously with someone whose ears are open and is willing to listen to your rants for a few minutes. So there is really no definite definition of virtue. It also depends on who has sold you what. If you happen to enjoy Cristiano Ronaldo, do you know who he is? Yeah. You realize that that's what you want to do with your life, become a soccer player. And then the definition of virtue for you is, well, he gets up at 3 in the morning and exercises, and that's what you do. He doesn't drink, and so you quit. He doesn't play video games, so you quit that. He doesn't smoke, so you quit that. And so, all of a sudden you realize you inherit the lifestyle of another person. It could be Jesus Christ, it could be Snoop Dogg, it could be Malcolm X, who the hell knows? So a good amount of what you think virtue may mean depends on the people you hang out with, and the things you read, and the things you think about. Consider the video games company. These companies behind closed doors, they really only have one task. They hire a lot of scientists, a lot of psychologists to figure out how they can create games that increases the dopamine in your tiny little brain, because that's the addictive component, And so if they're successful, so I suppose you see something, you like it, but you have to keep doing it over and over and over again until it becomes part of who and what you are. Then that can be categorized as virtue, I suppose. Something you aspire. Maybe. Who the hell knows these days anymore?
I have a follow-up question.
Of course.
Probably tangentially related, but it's like, what is it that money can't buy that doesn't? What is the source of happiness that money can't buy?
Money can buy everything. Let's exclude the spiritual component, but let's say that there is you like women? Okay, let's say there is a woman out there that you like, but she doesn't like you. In fact, she's disgusted by everything that you are. The way you look, the way you smell, the way you talk, your skin color, everything. She just hates you. You see her around noon in the quad and you say to her, if you don't have any money, I can get you some lunch. And And she recognizes you from class, and she says, sure. And you have lots of money in your pocket because your dad is rich. So you buy her lunch, you guys sit, you guys talk. For some strange reason, she still doesn't like you, but you've been kind enough to buy her some lunch. And then you say, if you're not doing anything over the weekend, I'm flying to France. Are you flying? Where are your wings? I have my own helicopter, you say. She says, yeah, I'd do that. And you realize that with your money, you're able to buy a lot of time from her. You buy her time. You show her a good time. And one of the things you've come to realize is that if your physical body is close to another physical body, if the two of you can coexist together in the same space for a long period of time, emotions will grow. And hopefully those emotions will not be negative, but positive. And let's say, despite the fact that maybe you don't look good, you don't smell good, you speak a little funny, we are the sort of animals that, things in us grow. And for whatever the reasons are, we grow to like it. You may not like animals, but you see the stray cat coming to your backyard meowing every single day, and before you know it, you're at Costco buying, a 30-pound bag of cat food. That's what we do. And all of a sudden you realize with the power of money, you were able to take this woman to all sorts of places, show her things that she's never been exposed to before. And spending time, you create stories. Those stories create psychological narratives. All of a sudden you become emotionally close, to the point that one day she calls you and she says, Danielle, I love you. You were only able to do that with money. Now imagine if you didn't have any money, but you had like intellectual riches. You sit next to her while she's starving and say to her, a human being does not live by bread alone. It's a beautiful saying, but you say that to a person who's starving, hasn't had food for a few days, it's very, very offensive. Your stomach is full, you're not starving, you have a nice house, your fridge is filled with food, you can come here and give me all these bumper stickers. I haven't eaten for 5 days, How dare you come to me and say, a human being does not live by bread alone, how else do they live? And you realize that intellectual richness initially doesn't really do much. So the point I'm trying to make is that money can buy almost everything under the sun. It can buy you comfort, it can buy you health, it can buy you all sorts of things. Unless you happen to come across someone like Jesus Christ or a Malcolm X. And there's this beautiful story in one of the Gospels about the rich young man, who comes to Jesus and says, Master, how can I attain eternal life? And it's a very, very funny thing, because what money does, it saturates you. You've gone to IKEA so many times that IKEA, just the name IKEA just once pushes you to puke, for example. You've bought so many flat screen TVs that you hate the fact that your house is cluttered. You have so many houses, you say to yourself, I have all these houses, but not one is a home. That you're just, in as much as you love money, that has also disgusted you. There's also this other part of you that most of us, we experience it once in a while, that, I have great looks, I speak well, I think well, I do this, I do that, but there is some emptiness inside me, I don't know what it is, And then all of a sudden, this man shows up. And for some strange reason, when you're around him, you intimate something. I'm not sure what it is, but he or she makes you feel a certain way. And it has nothing to do with money. And has nothing to do with flat screen TVs or houses or going to France or Germany. It's just, he cuts through all that stuff, and this part of it just comes out. And the assumption that you have is you presume that this person, who's made this emptiness inside you has also the food that nourishes you. So you say, how can I get what you have? And he looks at you and says, well, I'm not cheap. He says, okay, fine. What do I need to do to have what lives inside you? Well, you know what happened to me, right? And he says, no, what happened to you? I wanted this thing so much that I left my parents at the age of 12. Are you willing to give up your parents? He says, yeah, okay, well, that's good. well, I wanted this so much that I believed in Judaism and all the laws, but I had to give those up. Are you willing to give up your beliefs, your friends? Are you willing to stand naked? Yeah, I can take off my clothes. No, just remove all the emotions, all the beliefs, all the thoughts that have to do with your connection, relationship with the physical world. Just come follow me. What are you going to give me? Well, that depends. First, unlock. Second, if your ears are open enough, and if so, for how long? And then he gives you this last thing. I can't teach you anything. I can give you an experience. And you have to live with that experience and sit with that experience for a long, 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 long time. And if God finds you worthy, then maybe he'll give you. But the only thing he can give you is just an experience. That experience creates certain openings. And those openings tempt you towards following a quest or being on a journey. And then you have to be in this desert for a long, long time. And hopefully something will happen. Having said all those things, I've forgotten your question.
What is the happiness that money can't buy?
The word happiness comes from hap. It means luck. I have no idea how my parents' marriage is so wonderful. I don't know why my father is so positive all the time. When he's 90-some, he's beginning to slip. Not too much, but enough to make us curious. And I'm sure this day and age you could sit back and write a book about how to have a great marriage or how to be positive. But the truth is, he was just born that way, And the funny thing about us is that we are very, very gullible these days. We assume that just because one person has lived to be like 105, there is magic to it, that they have some secret. The truth is, no one knows. So part of being happy really is, sure, part of it has to do with luck. The other part has to do with, imagine, how old are you? 23. Imagine if at the age of just before you graduate from high school, you had this history teacher. You signed up for this class because it's the only class that you need to finish high school. And this history teacher had just magic inside him or her. It would excite you, inspire you every time you went to class. And at the age of 17 or 18, you say to yourself, every time you walk home, you just keep thinking about these information you got from the class. And then instead of playing video games, you're on YouTube, checking out history lessons. And then at the age of when the classes or the semester is over, your parents ask you, so honey, what are you going to study in school? You say, history. History. Yeah, history. I love history. For whatever the reasons are, you were lucky enough to run into this class, you were lucky enough to run into the instructor, you were lucky enough to be in a position to like this instructor, you were lucky enough to be inspired by the information that you heard. Hi. 266. For what? I'm sorry? G266? You're in Humanities 40?
Is focused, right?
Oh, yeah, that's at 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock?
11 to 12:15.
11, 12, 15.
Yes. It's okay. It's okay. No, I do it all the time. Not really. And so you apply to these schools, and lucky for you, Stanford takes a look at your application, very much like Emily's application when she sends it in. Right, Emily? Good job. And they say yes to you. And the next 4 years, you encounter only one really good history instructor. So your inspiration isn't completely crushed. And you need another one to just keep you going for another 4 years, and then you get your bachelor's. And you're still in touch with your high school instructor, and he gives you some, insights as to what you should do next. Then you apply for your joint master's PhD program, and you send your application to Oxford or Princeton or Yale, and you send, your own picture, a nice little photo of your face, and say yes to you. You're 27 and now you have a PhD. And then you apply to Cal for a teaching position, and they give it to you. Man, at the age of 27, you're in the classroom talking about stuff you love, and you can see your own students being excited and inspired. I mean, no one really knows what kind of a teacher they'll be until they walk in the classroom. And so you realize a couple of things. There's a good amount of luck involved. Going to school is not fun, especially when you have instructors who kill your passion.
Yeah.
It really sucks. It's like, and it happens to all of us. You fall in love, and little by little, the personality and the character of the person you were in love with slowly come out. Or maybe they're just good, but time just seeps in, and slowly, the relationship begins to oxidize. And so when you again look at the scenario, you realize you've had luck, you've had sacrifice, you've had pain, you were mindful, you kept at it despite having a rough time at times. So that's happiness. Now, if someone was to ask you, well, you should write a story about your life. And you say, well, okay, I can write all those stories. The question is, how do I write about running into a teacher that inspires me? How does that happen? And that remains a mystery. No one knows. It's really out of anyone's reach. And so, I suppose when it comes to happiness, the first element is luck. The second element is how you have been raised. Going back to Aman's comment, if you come from a background or a history where there has been a lot of trauma or brokenness, consider all those poor kids in Palestine, Gaza. Let's just say they get visas and they come to America. For the past 2-3 years, bombs have been dropping on their heads. If you ask them about life, they're not going to say, well, life is beautiful, life is filled with happiness and joy. No, they have a very gloomy outlook on power, on exploitation, on life, on being born, on suffering, on pain, on injustice, right? And so, yeah. So, a good amount of who and what you are depends on your past. If your past has been one of darkness and gloom, there's a good chance that you have a lot of blockages, like your arteries. You need oxygen, you need the blood flow, but it's just not happening. It's like being depressed. Every time you see the sun and you want to be happy, the clouds rush in, And so, no one, I don't think, has the prescription. Even Jesus Christ. What the hell can he do? He can give you his own presence, he can give you some stories, he can give you some experiences, but at the end of the day, you realize that you just don't have the stuff that live inside him, inside you, and so you deny him. Hard work, man. So you got to remove luck, and you got to just say, you know what? Despite the fact that school sucks and instructors are boring and this is all just dead busy work, just want a PhD. Just do it. And if the gods like you, or the muses up there like you, they'll put in one of these classes a really, really good instructor. And that's enough for a lifetime. So don't be duped by Barnes and Nobles when you go to these, book aisles and it says well, how you cope with divorce, or how you become happy, or happiness in 5 minutes. It doesn't work. Yes? What happened to Colin? Anyone know? Where's Colin? Okay.
Why do we sometimes not pick the person or the thing, the choice that's not the best for us?
Why do what?
Why do we not pick the best person and thing that's not the most beneficial to us?
Why do we not choose the person that's good for us, but we assume that they don't benefit us? Is that,
Why don't we always make the right choices?
why don't we always make the right choices? Is that what you said? Okay. Number one, we are pleasure-driven animals. Unless, pain is something you enjoy. I mean, thinking about death is not a fun thing to do. Unless you've done it so much that it becomes fun. And by fun, I mean it inspires poetry. It inspires reflection. It inspires worship and prayer. It inspires great conversation and great friendships, Oftentimes, kids really don't know what benefits them, and none of us know what benefit us. Look, I just had a triple bypass just a year ago. I should be very, very mindful of what I eat and the amount of minutes I exercise. Do I want to die? Well, sometimes. It's a good way out, especially in sleep, right? No, not really. Do I want to die miserably in pain? The answer is no. But the temptation of looking at a croissant, like an almond croissant, or chicken tikka masala, or like a 50-gallon bucket of ice cream, the temptation is just way, way, way too powerful. And there is this, in Islam, there are two battles, Jihadul Akbar and Jihadul Asqar. Jihadul Asqar is me and Danielle getting into a intellectual wrestling match, to the point that we become physical, where I just beat the crap out of him. This is just, right? That's an easy thing to do. I don't like the way you think, I hammer your skull in, for example. Jihadul Akbar is the bigger battle, which is, I am really angry at you, but there is something about me that says, well, Lark has a good reason in holding that particular position. It's because of her upbringing, because of this, because of that. I try to figure out why you are the way you are. And in doing so, I have to battle my own organic reaction, which is, she offended me, I need to lash out. So this Jihadul Akbar, or the bigger struggle, is you being aware of certain things, but you're also human, all too human. You want to react, and then there is this inner conflict. It's like you want to be happy, but the depression is too much. You want to love your father, but the hate is too much. And no book can give you answers, no therapy can give you answers. It's just something you got to do in your room. You close the blinds, you turn off the lights, and you sit. And you just hope that at a certain point, your hatred for your father goes away. And that's something you got to do, okay? So, given the fact that we are pleasure seekers, given the fact that we have a very low IQ at a very young age because we lack experience, given the fact that you live in capitalism, and the very function of capitalism is to sell you things. Now remember, one of the things about capitalism, especially in modernity after the Industrial Revolution, is things come to us very, very, very easy. There was a time I had to wait for 2 years to be able to buy a bicycle. That's no longer the case. There was a time I used to wait for 2 weeks for my letter to get to my lover. That's no longer the case. I can send a text within a second, okay? So, and you realize that the degree to which you can exercise patience have lessened over the years, okay? So there are so many things that are basically going against you. First, you don't have enough knowledge. Second, your parents have experienced, or your teachers have experienced, 20, 30 years over you, but you can't see the wisdom of their experience. The other component is we are the sort of animals that want to experience things on our own, and we want to be broken, and we want to overcome the brokenness. Now, there is nothing wrong with, doing things on your own, but there is something wrong with being broken and then not being able to heal appropriately or in a proper, time. So oftentimes it turns into something chronic. Now, let's say that you are my daughter. You're how old are you again? There you go. So with the exception of Tammy, almost all of in this class could, like be a kid of mine. 23. How old are you? Come on. 23. It's like Twilight Zone. And so, I ask you, for example, how many units are you taking? And you just say, well, I'm taking 3 units. Why only 3 units? You're so young, you can take like 50 units a semester. Get this thing done with. You say, no, I want to spend some time with my friends, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. And I say to you, listen, I have been 16 or 17 or 18 or 23, but you haven't been 60. I know what it means to have the luxury of time, but you don't really know what happens when that luxury has taken away from you. You think that you will never get to be 60. That's the exact same place I used to occupy. I will never get 30, I will never get 40, 50, or 60, or 70. Other people die, but not me. Other people will get sick, but not me. So I tell you that, listen, instead of taking 3 or 6 units a semester, why don't you take like 15 or 16 or 17? You can be done with Laney by the time you're like 18, and you can be done with your bachelor's by the time you're 20, and you can be done with your master's by the time you're 21 and a half or 22, and you can be done with your PhD by the time you're like 27. If I was to give you a real life story, my niece and nephews, my brother teaches, my sister is a pharmacist, his wife is a teacher, my sister's husband is a dentist. Most of the people they've been hanging out with for the past like 30 years, all doctors, all of them, heart, brain, just, regular Joe Schmo doctors. And that's their environment. And so these kids, when they were your age, 13 and up, they said, you know what, since we can take college classes, why don't we just do that? Why the hell do we want to waste time and spend ridiculous money? Let's just take lots of classes. So by the time they were like 19, they were done with the bachelor's. And the point I'm trying to make is a good amount of the amount of suffering that you can take really depends on your environment, okay? So if I was to, again, be your father and you say to me, you only want to take 6 units because extracurricular activities, so to speak, I can sit you down and say, listen, honey, I love you. And I know you're a musician. I know you're a podcaster. I know you're a this. I know you're a that. Get rid of your boyfriend. Get rid of all the stuff. Take about 21 units a semester. You can do it. Even will help you, And then I sit you down again and I say, by the time you're 27, you will be done with all of this. You'll have like a PhD in film if you want it, And then if you want to goof off, go to Yosemite State for 50 years. But when you come back to Oakland, you will come back with a PhD under your belt, And I try to convince you over and over and over again, no different than prodigal son story in the Gospel of Luke. But you just don't get it. And the truth is, I see the benefit of having a degree. I see the benefit of stability. You see the benefit of chaos because it is entertaining. Because it's like working in the ER at a hospital. You're 12-hour shifts. You're always running. One person dies, another comes in, you try to rescue him, he dies too, another comes in, so it's just ongoing, And so you become addicted to that lifestyle. so we must always reject the, I guess, the wisdom of those who have been in our world and have passed it by, because they have experiences we don't have, so they have a language for it that we don't have, they have feelings about it that we don't have. And so we are deficient in many, 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 many ways. You know, even at my age, when I speak to my father, which is on a daily basis, and he hears my voice, he says, "Yeah, you know, you should be thankful about this and that." You know, I said, "Dad, you know, you're wired that way. You know, I can't be like you. You're just like a gift to all of us. You know, I've tried to be like you, I just can't." And the point I'm trying to make is, despite the fact that my father keeps telling me that, you know, you're young, you have health, you have a great job, you have, you know, great students, you should be grateful, you know. And in as much as I want to, I realize my own organism won't allow me to. First, because of the way I've been wired, my temperament. Second, I'm just addicted in this habit of thinking, you know, always seeing the glass as half full. And the glass is also cracked. And there are also thieves who are eyeing my glass half full. So I see all these evils around me, you know. And in as much as I want to be positive and I want to follow my father's advice, I just can't, you know. Is it true that my father will pass and I'll probably be like 70, hopefully, and look back and say, you know what, my father is right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But when will I get that? In loss and in grief. And that's the tragedy. It seems that your moment of understanding comes only when you have lost something. You know. The flip side is, again, going back to the prodigal son, the kid who did not listen to his father eventually was given the gift of wisdom. The kid who did listen to his father and didn't walk into the world and was not contaminated was filled with organic human emotions, jealousy and envy and anger, you know. The son who sinned was filled with compassion and forgiveness because he understood. He understands why kids don't listen to their parents. He understands the temptation of money and pleasure. The older son just doesn't get it, you know. So, but despite the beauty that lives inside the story, some kids are just lucky enough to be able to listen to their parents and follow in their footsteps. Some kids are not like that. You know, they have to go out there and be burnt by life and come back and say, "Dad, you were right." My definition of benefit for you and the others in this class is making sure that when the semester ends, you walk away with this philosophy, which is you're going to take 21 units a semester and you're going to finish Laney very, very quickly. I don't care about Plato. You know, I don't care about the ideas we talk about in class because their shelf life is about maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. Once the semester is over, everything about this class is over. Okay. What should remain for you is you should understand the dangerousness and the complexity of life. Money, food, friendship, you know, relationships, parents, these are essential. And without power, you can't do much in life, you know. And one of the best ways that you can gain power, and America is an exception to this, but nevertheless, is by making sure that you just finish school. Not just with a crummy bachelor's degree, unless you get your bachelor's degree in computer science from Cal Berkeley. You know, then you can be like one of my relatives, a 23-year-old idiot who smokes and drinks all the time, but has a bachelor's in computer science, just got hired, you know, $300,000 a year. He's probably going to smoke it away. But the point I'm trying, he has money. So, stupid, but.
Choosing like stability and happiness isn't always the right.
Say again?
Choosing stability and happiness is not always the right choice because you don't work on it.
Choosing stability and happiness, well, there are different stages that we occupy. Okay? Look, I dropped out of high school because I wanted to be a soccer pro and a tennis pro. But I'm also an immigrant. So when my parents came here and saw that I'd been wasting their money, they were very, very upset. But the idea of stability, and happiness, for me, the only stability and happiness was being on the tennis court, on the soccer field. That's the only thing I saw. I didn't have the maturity of my parents or their concerns. So for me, stability was making it big as a soccer or a tennis star. That's it. Okay. Time passes, and you realize that you walk into different stages of your own intellectual and emotional maturity, which is right now for you, perhaps having 5 or 6 boyfriends is okay. You have the stamina for it. You have the proper digestive system to break down experiences, to process them. That may be fine. At a certain point in your life, you will desire a different kind of stability. Right now, the stability you want is, I don't want to fall in love because I know that love creates chaos. It removes my stability. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give 10% of myself to Joe, 5% to Schmo, 50% to Jack. Just in case Jack breaks my heart, it's only 50% or 20%, okay? At a certain point, you realize that you're just emotionally exhausted of being all over the place. For the first time, not only are you looking for a physical home, you're also looking for an emotional home. You just want to find one single human being in whom you can invest time and energy and future. And all of a sudden, you catch yourself. Maybe you're just in the morning, you're sitting on the toilet bowl, pooping away, and you say, man, so much about me has changed. For the past 20 years, I've been going out with 50, 60 different people. Now, for some strange reason, I'm interested in just one single person. Why is that? How is that? Is there something wrong with me? And the truth is no. You're just at a different stage in life. And so your definition of stability has changed. Now, let's say you've made it big. Today you mentioned that you don't want children because you're fully aware of what you put your parents through. Now, when you get to be 27, 28, and again, for reasons that you won't really understand, something about you, again, early in the morning while you're pooping on the toilet bowl, you say to yourself, man, I love Jack. And it's a great marriage. It's time for a family. I want a child. How's that happen? And the point I'm trying to make is there is a stage in life where you experiment with life. And you can only experiment if you have the privilege of experimenting. If you don't have any money, a slice of toast, that's the biggest wealth that's sitting on the dinner table. If on the other hand, your pocket is filled with cash, you can trash a whole loaf and it won't bother you. Okay? You're at a place where, young people in general, they can just waste. The prodigal son is about a young son. It's young. Young people just waste. That's their function in life. The only trick is make sure that you have learned, you have understood the things you have wasted. Money and time and energy and passion and devotion. You just need to make sure that the pleasures of your youthful years do not devastate a future you that desires a different kind of happiness or stability. You want to experiment with drugs. I wouldn't recommend it, but if you want to experiment, fine. But beware of addiction, because that will last a lifetime, which means that just in case as a young kid, you just want to experiment and you sat next to Jesus Christ, and he was talking to you. And you say, you know what, I want to increase the dosage because I want more of him, more of Jesus. And 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks later, you realize you're just hooked and there is no escape. And your parents try to put you through rehab and you do it for the next few years. It just doesn't work. And then for the next 50, 60 years, whatever you touch turns to ash. In my time, the only fun that existed was just clean fun. You know, you just go to the streets and play soccer. You grab your friends and you go and watch movies. Now it's far more dangerous. You know, so yeah, I think. Tell me, please.
You mentioned earlier to Danielle about inheriting someone else's life or lifestyle.
Right.
Do you think that's possible with us? Like, let's just say hypothetically, we'll use money. If you haven't been taught about money, do you think that can be passed down?
Let's say you and I are married, and Emily happens to be our daughter. I don't know how that would happen, but or let's say Danielle happens to be our son. Is that better? You like that? Good job. Now, you and I are very wasteful with money. Danielle sees that. We also live in a one-bedroom apartment. It's a very small space. And once in a while, Danielle comes home from his friend's house and looks at us and says, why can't we buy a house? I mean, you guys spend like thousands of dollars every week doing ABCD. Why can't we just buy a house? But he quickly forgets the question and forgets being at his friend's house. And we consume him with video games and all sorts of nonsense. But he pays attention to the way you and I are, and he pays attention to the smallness of the space. And he pays attention to how ridiculous you and I are with money. And he doesn't tell it to us because he's tried, and he comes to realize that he's the adult in the house and we're the kids. And without us being aware, he saves all of his allowances, you know. He gets a job, he saves his money. You know, you pay him like $50 to hang out with his friend, he saves that money. Some people have the capacity, I don't know how. I mean, it's like kind of like Malcolm X, seeing all that he saw about his mom, about his dad, about his siblings, and yet turns out to be a prophet. Whereas 90 other percent of the people who could see what he saw, and they end up in an institute, you know. So a lot of it really has to do with luck, you know, and how a person is wired. So he's a gift. He's very rare, Danielle, you know, looking at us and being very, very the opposite of who and me are. In many, many cases, children inherit who and what their parents are. Almost, you know.
What about if they never was raised with them? Do you think they still inherit it?
You know, there is this movie called The Four Brothers. I don't know if you've seen it. I mean, I happen to kind of project a lot of psychology in movies, simply because I like that, you know, just it's the way I do things. Now, so what you have is two black kids, and you have two white kids. They're all boys, which means that they're really, really tough. And they have all been adopted by this old white woman. And all these four kids have been in foster care. And foster care is really interesting because people are used like paper clips. You know, they just keep being passed around. And so there's a good amount of hatred and anger that live inside these kids. And so what you have in the movie doesn't say is that these are four kids from four different parents, different backgrounds, different skin colors, and yet they consider each other brothers. Add to it the fact that when their mother, their adopted mother, gets shot, they fight to see who actually committed this crime. And they're willing to sacrifice their own life, you know. So I mean, how this mother, what she did, who she was, to be able to bypass all that anger and animosity, and mistrust inside these kids, only God knows, because the movie doesn't tell us, Uh, it is possible, but nearly impossible. I think anything that's good and beneficial for anyone, it comes with a lot of hard work. The other thing is, and I don't know if psychologists, and may I, Tammy, in Afghanistan, and there are many cultures like Afghanistan, where young girls are physically and sexually abused. And they're very, very young by the people closest to them. Sometimes it's their brother, sometimes it's their uncle, sometimes it's their father. But there is this software that lives in the culture. For whatever the reasons are, these kids, these young girls, now young women, they get to be 17, 18, they get married and have a very, very, very productive lives. They need no therapy. The culture has a tendency of this power to just heal them, and I don't know how it happens. And part of it has to do with the fact that they're not really exposed to the language we have here. They're not exposed to the emotions that are the outcome of those particular experiences. And it's something that Gore Vidal had argued, some guy who's a novelist, that if we didn't have the word love, would anyone really fall in love? If we didn't have emotions related to love, would anyone experience those emotions? And the answer is, we don't really know, probably not. In my own case, and your case as well, that older generation, that, your father is just never home. Your mom just beats the crap out of you because she caught you lying or stealing. No PSTS, no therapy, no medication. We turned out to be relatively fine. My parents sent me to India at the age of 11. A place I've never been. There was nobody there. I had no idea who I was dealing with, talking to. They didn't come with us. We just me, 11. My brother was 10. And yet never once did I hear this idea that your parents didn't love you. That's why they sent you there. Your parents abandoned you. Yeah. Now imagine if there was somewhere or someone who kept pouncing in my head. You're here because your parents didn't love you. And you could rest assured that after a few years, I would hate my parents.
You believe it?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of what kids have inside them really depends on the culture in which they live and the sort of language that culture gives them and the sort of emotions they're exposed to. So one of the things that are happening right now in California in regards to, say, K through 5 or 6 or 7, is that, these are kids from the ages, say, 5 all the way to, or 6 all the way to about maybe 12 or 13. All gender bathrooms. Yeah. That you have private stalls, but then you come out, and you share the same sink to wash your hands and wash your feet and wash your face. Girls can go in there, boys can go in there. And so you sit back and you say, okay, well, this is like a 7-year-old or a 10-year-old girl. Next year she's going to start her menstrual cycle, and bathroom just happens to be a very, very private space. So why would you at such a young age desire to expose these young kids who are unable to process a lot of things under the sun, why would you want to expose them to such things? And you realize what happens in this culture, you expose, you give people emotions and language and thoughts that, for me at least, I think it's far, far, far too early. There is this experience I had, and forgive me for mentioning this, when I first moved to Oakland. This was in 2004. I was living by the lake. I was walking around the lake. And I remember this young mother, and she was holding her, I think, 2-year-old son, and she just got very frustrated, and rightly so. I mean, kids put parents through hell. And she began screaming at him, and she began to use the N-word 50, 60 times loudly. I'm saying to myself, this is a kid who doesn't have much history in him, who doesn't know much history, who doesn't need to know certain languages or words just yet. Just wait until he's like 9 or 10 or 15 or 20. I mean, the world will eventually rob his innocence. It doesn't need to be just yet, And so you realize that in this particular culture, no one is really safe, because we give people too many things at such a young age, difficult for them to process. And it's kind of like the story of the frog. You can either dump him in a boiling water where he can scream and then die, or you can slowly cook him or cook the frog. And what American culture does, it slowly cooks people. There is nothing wrong with diversity and inclusion, those things, nothing at all. But I think sometimes you can think about those concepts, in a way that's harmful for people. At my age, I can process almost anything under the sun. At the age of 7, I don't know. Emily? Aman? Adrian? Yes, Joey. Dark?
What is your view on Carl Jung's model of the psyche?
Carl Jung was a student of Sigmund Freud for almost 20 years, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And when they broke up, he went into this deep, dark depression for a long, long time. When he gained some maturity and independent thinking, he rejected most of Freud's ideas about human beings. And Jung was of a different temperament, I think. And I don't know if any of you are interested or have heard of. A few years ago, they discovered this journal that Jung had kept, eventually published. It's called the Red Book. One of my former students bought the book and gifted it to me. It's this beautiful hardcover. If you have Audible, you can in fact download it for $5-10, and you can listen to it. It's about 20 hours or 30 hours. The narrator has a very nice voice. He's an interesting man with some very, very interesting thoughts and ideas. Yeah. Unfortunately, I haven't kept up with his ideas that much. Part of it had to do with the fact that he uses language that I don't enjoy very much. I don't like books that talk about consciousness. I don't like books that talk about spirituality. You know, if you can give me a book that tells me how to cook, I can appreciate that. But once I know how to cook, then my cooking, I can eat and I can taste it for myself. The idea of you writing down your own conclusions and for me to have a good feel moment, you know, it's fine, but it doesn't do much for me. You know, Carl Jung had some wonderful experiences. Suffice to say, I don't know much about him, but this is a good man. Adrian, yes. Okay. Then, you guys, anything? Danielle, what time is it? Oh, we have time for a quickie. Okay. So listen, it's good to see all of you. Wednesday it is. Have a nice day.